a mass extinction. And Earth has experienced several mass extinctions throughout history. Each was probably caused by some form of global change in climate. And most of the time, they think it's cooling rather than heating. They don't know if it was caused by a supervolcano that blocked out the sun and caused the plant life to die, or maybe a meteorite that hit and did the same thing. But we have at least 4, some think 6 major extinctions throughout history. And so if you look here, this is 600 million years ago. You can see at least, about 4 peaks that we would call mass extinctions. These little peaks right here are called background extinctions, and they're expected. And so every day organisms go extinct that we don't necessarily hear about on the news. If an algae or something that's, not something people care a lot about goes extinct, it doesn't make the news. If something like the African elephant went extinct, of course, they would put that on the news. But the little things they don't always tell us about. And that algae is no less important than the African elephant. It's just not something that they would find fantastical or newsworthy. Scientists are warning that we are currently in the midst of another mass extinction right now that we don't really understand or feel like that's going on. But the rate of extinction is estimated to have increased by a multiple of 50 since 1800. Up to 25% of all species on Earth are estimated to become extinct between 1800 and the year 2100. And so that's quite a bit, because remember we said there were over 10 million species on Earth that we don't think we even know about yet. So the current mass extinction is different from those in the past because this time humans are involved, and we can actually see and collect data that that's occurring. And this is an interesting graph. These were projections. In purple was the expected rate of extinction, and the blue is the observed rate of extinction. They expected 1 mammal to go extinct. To present date, we've had 35. This is since they started counting in 1900. They expected about 2 birds, 2.3 birds to go extinct. We've actually had 57 go extinct. They expected about 1 reptile to go extinct. We've had 8. They expected about 1.4 amphibians to go extinct. We've actually had 32.
Wow.
Yeah. And fish, 2.8 were expected to go extinct, and we've actually lost 66.
Y'all fishes need to chill.
Well, why would fish be particularly in danger?
Because they're in water. And,
yeah, we eat them. We eat them.
They're delicious.
They're delicious. Fishes are delicious. So large populations that can adapt easily to many habitats are not likely to become extinct. So human beings are one of those populations where we have those options. We know how to figure out how to move, adapt. We can change our habitat by the clothing we wear. And so we're not as likely to go into an endangered state or an extinction state as some of these smaller populations of animals. Small populations in limited areas, such as islands, however, can become easily extinct. Also, species that are especially at risk include migratory animals, those who need large or special habitats, and those who are exploited by humans, whether we're eating those or using them for decoration or something like that, maybe using them in Chinese medicine. And so those are the ones that we tend to lend our concern to. Now, I showed you the IUCN Red List. It's part of your project, but it's hard to get on and off of that list. This is actually the approval process for getting on the list. And sometimes it takes a year or 2 to get on or off the list. But the reason we're using it is because some of the things that we learned about in elementary school are no longer on the list, like the American bald eagle. It is no longer even a threatened species, okay? You can see them outside right now. If you sit down and look, usually over a lake or a field area, it might take you a week, but you'll see one. I've seen them driving to school in the morning. And so that's why we're using the official IUCN list, is because some of that stuff that we were taught in elementary school isn't the case anymore. So species that are prone to extinction. The first definition is endangered species. This is one of your vocab terms. It's a species that's been identified to be in danger of extinction throughout all or a significant part of its range. And that is under the protection of regulation or conservation measures. And so that means that the country has actually taken steps to protect this organism and cause you to incur penalties if you hurt it. For instance, whales. Whales are protected in the United States. In United States waters, you cannot legally hunt and kill a whale. However, we don't have jurisdiction across the entire world. If a whale migrates over to Japan, can they kill it and eat it? They can. And so migratory animals have a really hard time because they don't stay put. They could be protected if they stayed within a country that had laws against harming them, but they don't know that if they go over towards Japan, they could be eaten. So a threatened species is a step above endangered. It actually identifies species likely to become endangered in the foreseeable future. And usually they're looking at things like habitat destruction or declining numbers of the population in the wild. So here we've got the giant panda, which has been taken off of the endangered species list. I think it's still on the threatened list. There's the American bald eagle we talked about. This is the sandhill crane. These are no longer on the endangered species list either. In fact, you can go down to Timms Ford and see lots and lots of these, and you can hunt them now. So they actually have a hunting tag for sandhill cranes. In the past 2 centuries, human population growth has accelerated, and so has the rate of extinction. In fact, they've almost moved in parallel with one another. This is human population, and this right here is the rate of extinction. So you can see a definite correlation between the two. The numbers of worldwide species known to be threatened or endangered is going to be listed on the next slide, but you need to know the major causes of extinction. And there's going to be at least a few of these probably in your report that you do. First is destruction of habitat. Next is introduction of non-native species. Next is pollution. And finally, overharvesting. Okay, so at least one of those will be listed on your report, maybe more than one. Destruction of habitat, introduction of non-native species, pollution, and then overharvesting. And so this is that list that we were talking about. Here we have the type of species, the number threatened, number extinct since 1800, and percent that may be threatened. So everybody, when they pick one of these, always go straight for the mammals or the reptiles. But really, plants are the ones that are in the most endangered position. Over 30,000 plants are on the threatened list. And why is that? Well, we do eat them, but can they run away? They cannot. And so when you mess up the environment, you're messing up the plant. They don't have the ability to move. So as human populations grow, we use more and more land to build homes and harvest resources. And this process causes something called fragmentation. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It breaks it up and fragments it. And so if you had one whole ecosystem here, or whole habitat for animals, if you put a fence through it or a road through it, then you're essentially slicing it in half. And so they have half the area. They don't like fences and they don't like roads. How many dead animals do you see on the road every morning on your way to school? It's a lot, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, especially possums and skunks. But out west, you have more than just possums and skunks. In fact, out west, they have to put fences on the sides of their roads because they have larger things like bison and mule deer. And if you hit one of those with your car, you're in big trouble. Our very first day when we went out west, a deer ran into our minivan that we rented and smashed the entire side of it. And so always get the insurance. But it's estimated that habitat loss causes about 75% of extinctions. So that's something to be concerned about is, do they have a place to be? A good example of this is the Florida panther. East of the Mississippi River, this large cat lives in the southern United States, in southern Alabama, southern Georgia, and southern Florida. or actually all of Florida. And there's only about 150 of these left in the wild. And the reason is, remember when we talked about distribution and how big cats have huge territories and they don't really like other big cats? Well, that's what's going on here. They are competing with other panthers, then they're competing with human beings. And I don't know if you've been to Florida lately, but it's all people all the time for tourism. And then they also are a reclusive type of cat, which means they may not find another cat to breed with, which affects their breeding numbers. We actually saw one dead on the side of the road about 10 years ago. I was with another group of teachers. We were coming back from a training, and I begged for them to pull over on the interstate, let me take pictures. It was Miss Winton and Miss Malden. And they're like, we're not going to pull over so you can take pictures of roadkill. And I was like, you don't understand. There's only 150 of them left anywhere. So I didn't get my picture, but I did see one. It was a couple days old, dead on the side of the road. It was pretty gross, but it was a chance to see one, and chances are you'll never see one. They don't have them in zoos or anything either. Florida panthers. So another problem are the invasive or exotic species that come into an area and outcompete endemic or native species. Exotic species are not native. They come in either by humans bringing them in, or maybe they come in riding on something that we've imported. A good example is fire ants. This is a fire ant colony right here. You can barely kill them. Here they are in a flood. They've just linked their legs together and they've created themselves a boat. And they'll just float to some dry ground and let loose and then create another hill of ants.
That's what fire's for.
True, you can kill them with fire. But it also makes your yard kind of ugly to have a bunch of burnt spots in it. Maybe. This is kudzu. Kudzu, I'm sure you've seen, it's a vine. They used to plant it to kind of hold the dirt on hillsides to keep it from sliding off. And then they figured out that that wasn't really a good idea because it kills trees. And so it was brought over here from China. It was used in weaving, and also people from China can eat or I guess anybody can, but they ate the leaves like a turnip green, kind of like we eat spinach or something like that. But it's now here and we have a hard time controlling it. Another is the zebra mussel. Zebra mussels are a type of bivalve, like a clam that gets in the water. And they're a good thing because they clean the water. But here in the United States, they're not native. They don't have anything that eats them. And so they grow so quickly and increase in number so fast, they can actually get on your boat and mess up your boat motor. They get in the motor. And so we have these in the Great Lakes, and they're a huge nuisance. They got here from ships that had been in China. A big boat has something in it called a bilge tank, which keeps the boat from being too wobbly, and it fills up with water. Well, you're supposed to clean out your bilge tank and make sure that there's no water in it from the last lake or ocean that you were in before you go to a new ocean. But people are lazy. They didn't do that. And so now we have zebra mussels. And so they're a huge problem in the Great Lakes. But there are other things that you know about that you wouldn't think about are invasive, like house cats. Where are cats from? What continent?
Africa.
They're from Africa. They're from Egypt. Okay. They made their way to Europe up through Turkey. And people had them for rat control, and then they brought them over on ships when they did trade and began exploring here in North America. But there are no native cats, house cats, to North America. See, you got something going on in there. You answer a lot of my questions. Also, rats. We had one type of rat. We had the black rat here, but the Norway rat came over on ships. And so now we've got extra rats. Who wants extra rats? And so a lot of these threaten native species because there's no natural defense against them. Also, excessive hunting can lead to extinction, as was seen in the 18 and 1900s when we killed over 2 billion passenger pigeons. Now, pigeons don't seem like something that's all that important, except for these were about a fourth of the total bird population of North America. They were important food sources. We ate them. Native people ate them. It's called squab. If you ever go to a restaurant in France and you see squab on the menu, That's pigeon. It's not chicken. It looks like a little chicken, but it's a pigeon. And so they were easy to kill. They could just take a shotgun and shoot birdshot up in the air, and like 100 would fall out of the sky. And because they were so easy to kill, we hunted them to extinction, and the last one died in 1914 in the Cincinnati Zoo. And Pigeon Forge in the Smokies was named after these pigeons, and they're completely gone now. Also, thousands of rare species worldwide are harvested and sold for use as pets, houseplants, wood, food, and herbal medicine. This is rhinoceros horns over here. Rhinoceros horns are used in Chinese medicine because they believe that if you grind it up and put it in a pill and take it, it makes men more virile, which means more sexually aggressive, I guess.
Viagra.
It's like Viagra. Yes, but it doesn't work. There is no known evidence that it works. And you can't take a rhinoceros's horn without, killing the rhinoceros. He's not going to let you cut his horn off. And so that actually has led to the extinction of the black rhino, which was, I think the last one was killed about 5 years ago, or not killed, it died.
It's not girl. The website says critically endangered.
Is it the black rhino? Maybe it's the white rhino. It's one of them. It's one of them. It may not be updated. I don't know. So poaching is when you illegally kill an animal that's protected. You don't have to be in a third world country or Africa or somewhere like that to poach. If you come to Tullahoma and go hunting out in AEDC or anywhere and you don't have a deer license and you kill a deer, you're considered a poacher. They have strict fines for that. They can take your car, they can take your gun, and you have to pay a huge fine. And so poaching is serious business because, this over here is extravagant, but what's to keep a poacher here in the United States from going out and killing, 5 or 6 deer every weekend, other than they might not be that good a hunter. And so that's why we have laws against that. So we're going to end today watching a video about the passenger pigeon. It's real short, but that ends our notes. Yes?
Actually, the one for the black rhino is updated in 2020.
Okay. Well, it's some rhino.
The Smithsonian has one of the largest collections in the world, open to scientists from all over.
Anyone who wants to come and study birds, they can either come here and work with us, or we can loan the specimens to them.
One specimen stands out above the rest.
Good to see you tonight.
You're kidding me. That's Martha?
This is Martha.
For a pigeon fan like Lucia, this is like seeing a movie star. The very last passenger pigeon.
She died in Cincinnati Zoo at 1 p.m. on the 1st of September, 1914. She was literally alone for about 4 years before she died, and we knew at that time that there were no other ones in the wild. So this is one of the rare cases when you can actually place an exact time and date on the extinction.
Today, Martha sits for posterity beside her companion, appropriately named George, a fellow passenger pigeon who died long before her. Hundreds of years ago, passenger pigeons were estimated to be about a quarter of the total bird population of the United States. But a mile wide, flying 60 miles an hour, would take days to pass overhead. So where did they go?
The story really is not a simple one. There are a lot of factors involved with any extinction. In this case, there was a lot of market pressure. They were easy targets because they occurred in these large flocks of over 1 billion birds. A hunter could go and collect thousands at a time without really having to try that hard.
Passenger pigeons became a staple of the American diet. By the end of the 1800s, millions were being shipped back to cities in the East. Another natural fact sealed their fate.
They didn't like television, so it's easier to make.
The biology of the passenger pigeon was such that they really relied on these large flocks for a couple of reasons. One was protection from predators, there's safety in numbers. They didn't have to lay a whole bunch of eggs to reproduce. So in a matter of just a few decades, we're just gone.
Once a species is gone, no amount of wishful thinking can bring it back. Birds Birds still go extinct, but the loss of the passenger pigeon made people take notice. It prompted the very first legal protections for migratory birds.
All right, so tomorrow we'll talk more about the project. If you have time tonight, go ahead and enter what it is that you want to do your project over, okay?